This is Bleav in Buckeyes. I'm Bryant Browning with All-American cornerback Chimdi Chekwa. The show is brought to you guys by FanDuel. Chim, we did it. We survived the winter. Ohio weather doesn't, they don't agree. But we got spring football going on for our Buckeyes. What's up, man? How are things?
Yeah, looking forward to spring season, right? We're going a little back and forth right now, but at a minimum, we at least get spring football. So that's good. And it's time for me to start working out, getting back in the weight room, kind of get ready for the warm up. I'm gonna be on the Texas Tech weightlifting plan where they don't have nothing under 40 pounds. Nothing under 40.
They banned them. They banned right. Yeah, everything's big in Texas, I guess, Paul. But hey, man, Coach Dave, man, is getting his team together for this 26th season. This is gotta be a record. It has to be a record. I don't even gotta look it up. But we got 51 new players in the program going into spring, and Coach Dave is kind of stressing the point after the first 2 days where you just kind of run around, no real pass, just kind of helmets and shorts. How to practice as a Buckeye. How important is that, Chim, for these new guys to kind of understand that? Obviously, we got some new guys, but some guys are veterans, right? They got some experience on the college football level. How do you break that in? How do you get that point across on this? How we do it here in the state of Ohio?
Yeah, it's big, especially one, you want to make sure guys are practicing fast with speed, trying to mimic game type speed and even take it to the next level. But you also want to be able to keep your guys up, not create unnecessary injuries. That's a tough balance, at least for coaches to monitor. I know for me, as a defensive back, I always erred on the side of making the play. So, if a guy has to get hit, or if someone's gonna have to come crashing down in order to make because it's competition. So at the end of the day, I know coaches are marking off wins and losses, and I wanted to win, but that type of mentality leads to injuries, unnecessary injuries as well. So you also have to figure out how to get guys out there, understand how to play fast, stay up, and do those things, which is good. I think what's interesting about this spring is they get to do that in a couple practices and then go on spring break, take some time away from football, and then when they get back, they're ready to go for the rest of spring. So I expect when they get back, put the pads on for them to be ready, locked in, focused, and ready to compete on the field.
Yeah, I hear you there. And because that always kind of is the question, right? You start off and helmets and shorts. And when this is Buckeye Nation, we know our state, our journalists, us, this podcast runs on Ohio State football. So right away, right, you get guys out there and they having little think pieces about what's going on, what are they seeing, who's getting reps, who's doing what. Is it all for not? I mean, obviously, once you actually play the game, it's not helmet and shorts. You got pads on. You're hitting people. You have to be physical. You have to be able to get knocked down and get back up and deal with a couple of nicks to kind of make it. But early on in the spring, this is all you had. Like I said, we got 51 new players. How do you really know if a guy is kind of getting the grasp of things in the first couple early days if you're only a helmet and shorts?
Yeah, you don't know too much. There is an element of the new guys. And I think, there's been a lot of talk about certain players, certain freshmen, who's standing out in spring. Maybe guys who are in their second year, maybe some transfer guys. And all you're really looking for is how they move. Do they look faster? Do they look big and fast? Or, do they look like they transition well? The reality of it, that actually is not real football. So at the end of the day, a guy, and we've seen it countless times, where a guy looks really good in shorts and a helmet, but then when the hitting starts, it just does not look the same. It's just not the same game. That's just the reality of it. But you do get an idea of who moves better, who moves the best. I think one good example is when I saw Oliver Reese for the first time. Just seeing in terms of his size, and then also seeing his ability to move and his speed. Same thing with Sonny Styles, seeing his size and then it doesn't matter if he was in shorts, helmet, shoulder pads, like all those things. It didn't matter. It's just, it was impressive to see that level of player in terms of physical ability also move in the way that they do. So you do get kind of an indication of that. I think Carnell Tate was another guy. When I first saw him, how smooth he was in his routes as a freshman, just kind of showed that he had tons of potential. But then when you put the pads on, that guy who has tons of potential at receiver, he still has to go be able to block. Like, he still has to be able to get off a jam, and those things change. But especially for the young guys, you can kind of tell who, in some cases, you can tell who has a real potential to develop into something special, potentially, if they're,
Yeah.
moving and they look different than some of the other players.
Yeah, no, yeah, because it's like you said early, it's early, it's helmet and shorts. But if you're a coaching staff, there's like they have to trust you to play, right? We start talking about a lot of young guys and who gets an opportunity and things of that nature. And obviously this year we got a lot of guys coming off the transfer portal as well who gets the actual opportunity to play. You have to be trusted to do so. And if it
Yeah,
was a 3-phase process to be trusted enough to actually start or actually play, it's phase one, it's helmet and short. How do you go out there and get into the huddle and break the huddle? You had 2 practices. You learned some plays. Did you comprehend the plays? Are you doing the right things? Hey, this look got a little bit different. Do you know enough about ball to kind of make this adjustment on your own? Or do we got to wait till we get the film to get it corrected? Those little things start to kind of stick out, especially as an offensive lineman. It's all about plays. You have to know the plays. You have to be going to the
yeah,
right direction. And the helmet and shorts, yeah, the physical side of it is going to come, right? Couple more days, couple weeks, it's going to come. But do you at least kind of get lined up in the right way and get to going in the right direction? Are you comprehending? Are you hearing what's being called? Or are you out there just kind of out there like a chicken with his head cut off and you just kind of getting bounced around because you don't know exactly where you need to be? Those
yeah.
kind of things kind of show up as well. And it kind of goes into your experience. And then also for a young guy, like just how serious are you taking it? Can you comprehend enough to be ready week one? Once you kind of get through the physical, once you get to phase 2 and phase 3 of being trusted, phase 1 is always helmet and shorts, and how do you comprehend and how do you take it from there?
Yeah, I think and the unique thing about this offseason is 51 new players. 50 new players, that's a lot of guys.
It's a lot of guys.
Um, and you carrying a roster maybe about 80 something, maybe 90 players in total. To have 50 new guys is really I mean, it's a decent amount of guys that you only get about 15 opportunities practice-wise, I think, in the spring. It's not a ton of practice, right? So you're evaluating everything. You're evaluating the workouts, the mat drills, right? To just see, do these guys, I mean, some of these guys come in the transfer portal, you don't know what the workouts were wherever they were elsewhere. So you need to make sure that these guys held up the standard that we're actually trying to put on the field. And then when you get to practice, I don't care if it's shorts, t-shirt, when we put out these plays, can these guys process what we're doing and be able to execute? Can I trust this guy? 'Cause I'm just learning this guy. I know I've watched him on tape and seen him do stuff at a high level, but can he do what we're trying to do? Um, so yeah, I mean, it's and then also you also kind of getting to know individuals. You also starting to build that team environment. It's also the ability, especially when you think about defensive players, that communication. Right, some of these new guys. How do we communicate? How do we kind of build that cohesiveness defensively? Same thing on the offense, right? So yeah, and it's really an opportunity to see how guys work together and gonna be able to handle what they're tasked with,
Right.
um, really starting now and how that carries into the season.
Yeah, because it could be a lot. It could be a lot, right? And like you say, this could be a lot. But our guys has made it to 2 days so far, and plenty more opportunities here to get proved and better and continue to compete as we gear up to make our 2016. But Chen, let's talk about some breakout players. Obviously, there's 51 new guys. We got some guys that are going into year 2, 3, 4 in the program. We got new guys walking in the building, true freshmen, and transfer portal guys. But so far, I think we kind of know in certain areas, like the depth chart is, we have some competition, but some guys are, you expect to kind of go out there and compete. Any guys that you can kind of say right now needs to take this spring very serious and start to move forward to become a breakout or a household name for this 2016 and what they bring to the table?
Yeah, I think if I look across the roster, the biggest breakout player defensively for Ohio State to me is Devin Sanchez. Now, this is a guy who played a lot his freshman year. I mean, if you go back prior to his freshman year, you look at him as a high school prospect. In terms
Right.
of prospect, in terms of like things that are elite, and you start checking boxes, he checks a lot of boxes of the potential to be elite in certain areas. I would compare him. This may not be fair, but I would compare him as a prospect to a Jeremiah Smith type player defensively. Um,
Mm.
so what that means though is when he's fully developed as a player, he should be able to emerge into the type of player who could potentially be elite corner. So I think in year one, he was still kind of figuring out. You go through an off season, you continue to develop physically and do some of those things. But at his size, speed, and just his footwork, his movement, his mobility, those things, he should be one of those guys that steps into a starting role and can be a big time player defensively. And you kind of need him to be, given that you
Oh
lost
yeah.
a big time corner and Davison Ebenepoel. And what I anticipate our defense can potentially do. You know what I mean? It requires elite level talent at the corner. What was the statement you made? You're only as good as your worst corner on
You only
defense.
get your worst corner on defense. Yeah, but no, but when it get down to it, like this is it's no question. This is the biggest question mark for the 2016 is who's going to be cornerback number 2. We know what Jermaine Matthews bringing to the table. He's been doing it for essentially 3 seasons, right? We know what he can do. But if it's one, and like you can kind of look at positions who we lost people, you could plug them in. I think at the cornerback, you probably would say like interior defensive line because we just don't know exactly what we got of those guys. But to me, the biggest question mark is like who's going to be cornerback number 2? Who's going to step into that role and just own it and claim it? There would be some competition, right? Devin said obviously he has to go in with the league. That's everything about him coming in, all the things we've seen, like you just stated, all his measurables, all the things that he could do. But we brought some guys in the transfer portal because we need to know. We need to know that, when the season kicks off, that we have 2 cornerbacks that kind of go out there and can compete against any wide receiver. There's no better way to get ready for this, but other than practicing against Ohio State and Jeremiah Smith and Brandon Ennis and all those guys that we bring to the table. But someone has to kind of grow and elevate, and we're pushing for Sanchez to do it, but it has to be someone because if you don't get that position right, or you get into the season talking about we're gonna rotate guys in and things of that nature, it doesn't sit well, and it kind of brings some question mark into if we got a guy there that could really hold it down.
Yeah, to me, there's no question that he should be the guy. In terms of, I know it's not enough to just have the physical abilities and those things, but I mean, he has it, and and he's got he's got some experience too in year one, that helps with confidence and just the feel. Like you know how it is. Offensive line
Yeah.
is the same way. Playing corner, sometimes it feels different, right? And even though you may have the talent, you kind of have to see what the game speed feels like. You got to kind of get used to how receivers actually run in the routes in the game versus practice. It feels different. But with that 1 year of experience and that 1 year of continued development, physical development, all those things, he should be a guy. And if he's not, there's a number of fingers we can point, right? Coaching, player, etc., or how he's being used. But I truly Bleav that he comes into his own this year, and he's a player that we rely on to be a big time defensively. I want to ask you the same question though. On the offensive side of the ball,
Mm-hmm.
who would you consider, a potential breakout player going into this season?
Yeah, man. I think obviously I think first it starts at the head of the snake, and that's Julian saying. It's like, what you mean, breakout? He was the starting quarterback, he's a Heisman finalist. Like, what do you mean?
Right.
But I think we all know what type of steps that we can kind of see out of Julian saying when it comes to just being a little bit more explosive in certain situations. Taking that opportunity to run because we didn't think he was a big scrambler. But we seen him run some this year. Didn't look bad. He has the ability to do so, and this kind of is how he navigates the pocket. Right. I mean, obviously, we started playing against higher competition. It's going to break down somewhat bit. And you just have to kind of know how to navigate and kind of still make the decisions and mentally know where you need to be going and looking to kind of continue to keep the offense going. It's not always going to be pretty. So that's a step that I think us and Buckeye Nation expects to see, wants to see as he kind of continues to grow to be from being a good player to being a great player. I think he could do it. Right. And I don't know, voting the Heisman stuff is a little funny. He can have a great season next year and still not win the Heisman, but because we know how that could go. It's a media thing. It's who did it at what time type of situation. Him for one. But two, I don't know. There's been a lot of talk around Legend Bay. And I think Legend Bay has to be one of the loudest commitments in recent Ohio State history, but everything that took place between himself, Tennessee, and his mother and his parents, and him making the decision to be Ohio State Buckeye. But it's interesting, right? We see him lining up at running back, getting carries, getting reps there. Coach Locken is on his head, telling him hold the ball high, doing things there. But then you also see him doing reps at wide receiver. And we know what type of talent he is, right? I mean, he's what you said Sanchez is a 10-6 guy. What was he like a 10-4-3 guy in the 100-meter coming out of high school, something like that. Very special talent. And you start looking at him as in the wide receiver from Miami. What was his name?
Malachi Tony.
Yeah, Malachi Tony, who also played mostly quarterback in high school, and all the things that he was able to bring to the table right away for the Hurricanes. I feel like Legend Bay, he has the opportunity to be that special. Got some things to work on. I heard he getting the ball knocked out a little loose and things of that nature. He got to work on his phase one progression a little bit more. But we know that he's a special talent, and he's a guy that we have to try to figure out ways to get the ball to so he could get the feel of it, and we can really see what we got and that special talent for Ohio State.
Yeah, I think the Malachi Tony comparison is a good one. I know Ryan Day compared him to like Tyreek Hill and other individuals. I think the Malachi Tony one is a good comparison just because of that. He was a quarterback in high school. He was able to make a big impact as a young player. I think the challenge at Ohio State is that there's always a lot of players that demand the ball and that you want to get the ball to. So sometimes you don't fully invest in an individual like that, right? And you see all those clips of Coach Lockland getting on about holding the ball, taking care of the ball, which I think is important. But if he has a slip up and fumbles here or there, do you continue to give him the same level of opportunities as a young player, right? Young players tend to have short leashes at Ohio State, right? Where you go elsewhere and you're the featured guy, you get a lot of opportunity. But you can see him even in drills. This is where even without pads, you see some talent. Even in drills, you just see how fluid and how quick he can move, which just shows his difference. Julian Sain, what I liked about Julian Sain is that he grew some facial hair. Right. Julian Sain grew some facial hair, and it's almost like a signal or a representation of his transition from year one, first year starter who had an elite level efficiency as a quarterback to year two, more seasoned starter who kind of understands the game at a different level. He's already experienced some of it. He's already seen where he's been good at, where he struggled at, and he's going to make those improvements. Ryan Day has already mentioned the fact that he needs to step up and run in those cases. And I think that's really important that the coach mentions it.
Yeah.
Because we could talk about the player all we want, but the coach has to coach that. He has to coach every aspect of it. And coaching the ability to step up and run and take those yards will burn it into his mind to do it. It will be part of the practice. It will be part of his process. So when the game comes, it'll be natural. And I think that's a big step. And I know I'm a little bit of a homer, but I think Julian Sain next year is a top 2 quarterback. You can name your other guy. It could be Arch Manning. It could be Trinidad Chambliss. I don't know if they let him play or not at this point.
Or not.
It could be, I don't know, the other quarterbacks out there. But he, to me, will be a top 2 quarterback without question. Dante Moore out of Oregon or whoever else. And it's because if you look at Ryan Day's history and some of the quarterbacks who have played 1 year and then you see them in year 2, they always take a jump. Yeah. They play solid year 1, and they always take a jump in year 2 with slowing down the game a little bit, having more ability to change calls and identify reads to do those things. And I expect Julian Sain to take that similar jump as like a C.J. Stroud, a Justin Fields, and other quarterbacks. Even Kyle McCord took a big. I know he wasn't at Ohio State year two, but even Kyle McCord took a big jump. I expect Julian Sain to take the same type of jump. And if Julian Sain takes a jump like you say, he was a Heisman finalist in year one. So
Yeah.
if he takes a jump, where can he jump to? All right.
He gonna jump to the
I look
draft,
forward
man.
to seeing his breakout.
He gonna jump to the draft. But
Right.
yeah, let's go. Hey, but yeah, no. So we shout out to the before I forget, shout out to OSU basketball team making the tourney, making the big dance here. I think they got TCU week 1. You can check in on FanDuel for all your betting needs regarding this tournament. This is when you kind of really wrap it up. Ohio State got the favorite over TCU by I think 2.5 points. We're in the big dance. I can finally enjoy March Madness again properly now that my Buckeyes have made the tournament, man. But all right. Well, all right. Back to football. So we came out with a poll with FanDuel. It's another FanDuel poll here that they had Ohio State for over and under wins for the season. You can kind of go ahead and lock in that bet now. But they had Ohio State at 9.5, tied for third in the Big Ten with Penn State. At 10.5, they had Oregon and Indiana. Is it possible that we end up not winning? I don't know. I like the over, but I mean, what's your thoughts on 9.5? Are we truly the number 3 team in the Big Ten? What you got?
Yeah, not the number 3 team. I think it's more a representation of how the schedule falls for Ohio State versus other teams. So if you look at Ohio State, they play Oregon, they play Indiana, they play Michigan, and they got the out-of-conference schedule team with Texas that they also play. Also still got USC on the schedule, I Bleav. Illinois on the schedule. Iowa on the schedule. Right. So if you start looking at that same list and you look at the top teams in terms of projections of wins, Ohio State plays pretty much all of them. When, Indiana and Oregon don't play each other, right? So that takes them out of the equation. And they don't play Penn State, right? And you look at Penn State, they don't play anybody. They don't play Indiana. They don't play Oregon. They don't play Ohio State. They play Michigan, but they don't play – I don't even think they play USC, or they may play USC in Washington. But
they play USC, yeah.
But they don't play Iowa, right? So that out-of-conference schedule – and they don't have any out-of-conference tough games. Neither does Indiana, right? So Ohio State has stayed true to playing a tough team out of conference. Michigan has as well. Give Michigan some credit there. They play Oklahoma, and they have a pretty tough schedule similar to Ohio State, but those are the only 2 teams that really have that level of schedule. So I think that's what the projection is. I do think, depending on how things go early, I think it's the early games that are really, really kind of dictate how this thing goes, because anything can happen versus the early game versus Texas. They could lose, they could win. Right? Your team is going to continue to evolve and grow from that. And it's hard to judge those early games. But after that, once they kind of figure out what their rotations are, where guys are going to be, et cetera, how they're going to play offense, how they're going to play defense, I think from there we get a good indication of where they fall. But what I do like about this is Penn State plays nobody, right? Penn State plays nobody. So they're likely going to be a playoff team. IU and Oregon have some tough games, but they don't have enough to where they likely end up being playoff teams. So the Big Ten is going to leave with some good representation in the playoffs, and Ohio State and Michigan are going to play all the tough games. Basically.
Yeah, man. Yeah, looking at least like four teams, early, right? At least 4 teams. But shout out to Matt Campbell, man. That year 1 coaching job at Penn State is looking a lot sweeter, man, with the way that schedule kind of lined up for them, man. So that's good, man. So I mean, looking into things, I know Coach Day has been speaking a little bit to the media and about our approach, and I think even our when we lost the playoff game, we had a gripe, right? We had a gripe the way our defense kind of went about basically lining up against Miami, because it really was just all in the lineup, and how much underneath stuff they kind of gave away to Carson Beck and them consistently getting first down on third down situations. And they kind of asked Coach Day just straight up, hey, defensively, are we going to take a more aggressive approach and attack some of these offenses? I think they have some stats. We're middle of the nation in turnover margin. We're back into the nation when it comes to what they call like a havoc play, things of that nature, with us kind of really attacking guys and trying to make something happen. Coach Day has some words,
Yeah.
as he always does. What's your thoughts on Coach Day and his words of kind of saying, not really saying like, yeah, you about to see a new type of defense from us, but kind of saying we're going to be who we
Yeah.
be, keep guys in front of us, and we'll make a play when we can.
Yeah, I always think it's interesting. When you ask Coach Day a Kirk question, he really answers it. Like, he basically was like, we lost a lot of guys on defense. If you pressure more, there's also some risk there. There's some give and take when you pressure more. And then also, there's other ways to generate turnovers, getting sacks, um, punching the ball out, getting some tips. So he basically is like, yeah, we're probably not going to be more aggressive than we were last year. And I struggle with it because I think in the games they lost versus Indiana, the early interception that Indiana had impacted the game, right? In the game they lost versus Miami, the pick six was a difference in the game. I mean, you can say whatever you want about Julian Sain getting hit and all that other stuff. The offensive line didn't play good enough. If that pick six doesn't happen, the chances of Ohio State winning go up dramatically. It's just
Yeah.
a pick six in the game is just it's so demoralizing in terms of the percentage chance of winning the game. And the same with that early interception versus Indiana, putting them right in position to score, it changes the game so much. And I just think in Ohio State, in terms of the talent defensively, you just look at last year, they had so much talent that when you look at turnover margin, I think they were somewhere in the 40 range. When you look at interceptions, I think they're in the 80 range. The havoc rate stats you mentioned, they were like in the 30s versus Miami, who was 11. It feels like they have the talent just to create more defensively, and to take a little bit more gambles, because it's like, dang, when you that talented defensively, is it really that much of a gamble? Is it really that much of a gamble on 3rd and 8 to send? And this is last year, to send Oliver Reese and Sonny Styles, who are going to get home, or Caleb Downs, and to have your corners, who should be some of the better corners in college football, to be a little bit more aggressive. Is it really that much of a gamble? Because the other teams are doing it, right? The other teams, and they don't have 4 or 5 first rounders, right? So I would like to see more aggressive defense within reason. Again, when you talk about a guy like Devin Sanchez coming into his own, right? That should allow you to be more aggressive up front. And then I think the other simple thing is just, being able to just be one-on-ones pass rushing. I think we haven't gotten the level of pass rush that we've grown accustomed to seeing in the past with the Bosas and the Chase Youngs and stuff. But I think there's a big gap between what we used to get and what we're getting now, right? And I think we have the talent up front to be able to figure out how to generate pressure and impact the quarterback, because defense is about impacting the quarterback. And I don't think we've done enough of it. The defense has been great in terms of points scored, points allowed, but in terms of being able to hit the quarterback and affect them in a way that drives turnover opportunities, I don't think we've been as good as we can be.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And it's interesting. Obviously, Coach Patricia, he has a tall task, right? He's replacing a lot of guys, a lot of first-round talent here on that defense. So we all are interested to see, what does this defense look like? Can that cornerback number 2 step up, stand tall, and we maybe play more aggressive, getting some guys facing, play some man and some known blitzing situations, and just dare them to be able to make that play. Dare the quarterback to find that window to make the play. We didn't see it last year when it came to the biggest game in the playoffs. We spoke about it before. Two playoffs ago, we won the national championship, and we was blowing guys out. But if you remember, our quarters was playing a tad bit soft in those situations as well. And, sometimes the comebacks to bite you. Sometimes, it is what it is. You win a national championship and no one cares. But and that's just kind of the opportunity we have to kind of grow and continue to get ready for our new season coming up. But that's it for today. As spring ball continues to roll along, we will continue to report on it. We kind of get into the trenches. I think, man, maybe next one. Once you can't talk too much about the trenches without no pass on. Once you put some pass on, you get into our offensive line play, our new defensive linemen, and what they're looking at exactly there. We continue to bring you Buckeye news. As always, please follow us on Apple, Spotify, YouTube. Tune in to the FanDuel Network. Watch us on TV when you have a chance. And we continue to lock in and bring you Ohio State Buckeye news. Shout out to the Bands team one more time. Let's go. Let's get to, I think, next episode. We should be in the Sweet 16 by then. I'm calling it now, Chim. But, hey, we're going to end the show, as always, with a nice OH.
Yo.
Go Bucks. Talk to you guys soon.
Go Bucks.